Homestead Skill of the Month Club. We're still in month 3, which is garden, soil, and seeds. I hope that you all have been enjoying some tutorials and some conversations about gardening. It can be intimidating. A lot of people do things a different way. It can seem like there's a lot of conflicting information out there, but we just hope that people have the courage to just try something and get started and let your instincts take control and find something that works for you. So I'm here again with Erin Case. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
And today we're going to talk about herbs. We're going to talk about growing herbs and using them in our lives. We're going to talk about how that contributes to our idea of healthy lifestyle and self-sufficient living. So let's get started. So why don't you start by telling me how you got interested in using herbs medicinally, or what that even means to you, and then maybe you can tell us some of what you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love growing herbs and I love learning about herbs, and I grow a lot of herbs for medicinal purposes. I use them in teas. I also use them for poultices to help heal wounds. So also we just use them for cooking, herbs and spices that we grow. So what do you want to know?
So I love that she said that, because there's a smoother transition between herbs for health cooking and herbs for health medicinal than you might think. I mean, than other people, that might be someone else's strategy. But Erin and I both share a perception that herbs can help you when you eat them. And you can eat them fresh, and you can eat them in your soup, and you can eat them by putting them in hot water, and that becomes a tea. It doesn't necessarily have to be turned into a very potent medicine in order to have positive effects in your life.
I think a turning point in my life was when I had my first 2 children in the hospital. And I was totally devoted to having my children naturally. But when the pain came on of labor, I felt like that was too much, and I felt a little bit pressured by doctors and nurses to have epidurals, and I realized after the fact that I didn't have the knowledge to empower myself to overcome those temptations from the doctors to take on the pain medication. I didn't know for sure that that pain was normal, that it was safe. So after that happened twice, and I really wanted to have my babies naturally, then I finally took my family's health and my health into my own hands, and I started researching and learning about health for the first time. And that's when I started learning about all the different things that we are putting into our bodies that are not good for us, including medications, including processed foods. So little by little, one step at a time, I changed things that we were eating every day, and I've come to a point where I think that the majority of the foods that we eat are made from scratch or are just natural, raw foods instead of processed or chemical enhanced or fake foods, I guess that's another way to say it. So some of the things that we do in our home to make eating healthy and simple is that we will, for example, cook beans like 3 times a week. Just not overcooked, mushy, mashed beans, but just beans we can add into anything. We put them on salads, we put them on everything we eat. We stick them in snack cups and take them with us because they're healthy and my kids like them. We season and flavor them really well with some of the things we grow in our yard so that we feel like we're eating a really fast, easy, simple snack. And that's a really easy way to get a lot of good nutrients. Some of the other things that I like to do for eating healthy are just having vegetables all the time. In the winter, when we don't have a lot of fresh vegetables growing, I will take some gathered sprout seeds, and sometimes I buy them, sometimes I store them from spring and summer and fall, and we sprout them all winter long. So we have fresh greens. And that's probably the best way that we get our nutrients, our fresh nutrients, in the wintertime.
So I have to cut in here because I don't know if Erin knows that we've been studying sprouting in the Skill of the Month Club all week. So
Wow.
I'll link them below. There's a video from Melanie Lynn of Road to the Farm, and there's a video that I did with Angela Withers about how to sprout. This is a very important skill for anyone who's looking for food self-sufficiency and winter nutrition. And it's just proof that Erin, without even knowing it, has brought that up in this conversation. That's exactly what we're working on.
Very cool. One of my favorite ways that I sprout is to gather our green beans, dry green beans, and I will just sprout them before I use them in soups.
Okay.
So I will soak them in water, and I'll do that overnight, and then I'll stick them in a mason jar, and I will shake out all the water out of the mason jar, and I will put a strainer lid on it. I just have little homemade plastic strainer lids that I put them on there. And then I cover them with a cloth. I rinse them morning, dry them again, rinse them night, dry them again. It usually will take 2 days for me to get sprout enough off of my green bean starts so that I can use that in my soups.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand what kind of beans we're talking about here. So these are your runner beans that you've grown in your garden.
Yeah.
But you've split the pod, right?
Yeah.
And you took out the seeds.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would probably just call those dried beans, and whatever variety they are. So I would go through exactly that process with navy beans or black beans, the same process, but how much better it must feel to have grown them yourself.
Yes, absolutely. You can do the same thing with those beans and then use them in your salads, but usually you'll let them sprout several more days or a few more days. And my kids do not like those kinds of sprouts in their salads as well
Okay.
as, for example, alfalfa sprouts. So then we will also purchase alfalfa seeds, and we will sprout those. And when we're on a really good roll, we keep them on a 3-day cycle of growing them and then eating them. So we start new seeds every 3 days. And then we just add them with whatever other greens or vegetables we have in storage, and we will eat those all winter long.
Right. So I love that this is the topic in March, because for us, Erin's down in the valley, so we're probably zone 6 here.
Yeah.
So, and I'm up in the mountains, so I'm zone 5, almost zone 4 actually, where I am. But in March, for both of us, we don't have greens in our garden yet. So now is the time that our bodies are really craving that nutrition, the enzymes, the live enzymes that are going to help our bodies. And there's more of a craving of that than you might expect. I'll tell a little story about Sadie at this time of year. My little Sadie, she just tells the truth about everything. Erin was just saying that she didn't know how to do something on her own television set, and Sadie just said, I don't know, it's your house. So the things that come out of her mouth, you know that she's telling the truth.
Yeah.
And last spring, we had not been purchasing anything from the grocery store as far as vegetables go. We've been doing just our own stuff and a lot of wheat. So we were eating a lot of foraged foods. Right around April or May, she went over to someone's house and she had fresh iceberg lettuce from the grocery store. And she said, this lettuce tastes like candy. So don't underestimate even your children, how they can crave different kinds of foods that they haven't had for a while. If you're eating seasonally when these things come up, even little ones can be really happy to see those sprouts if they haven't had anything except what's coming out of the jars for a couple months. And I think that's good. I think it's great to make it so that there's a natural craving there, or an affinity to the foods can solve that problem of trying to force your kids to eat well.
Anyway, so we keep on hand a lot of things that we can try and find local vegetables, and we chop them up and store them in mason jars, and I usually will rotate those out twice a week. So we just fill our mason jars with vegetables, because I have a fridge in my house.
Right? But tell us which vegetables. Let's make this
Okay,
clear.
yeah, absolutely. We do carrots and celery and bell peppers, and we can get some of those fairly local since they are in the state neighboring us.
Right.
So we just get whatever we can get, and all my boys like different things, so we just chop them all up, stick them in jars, have them ready to serve. It makes it really simple when everything is just ready on hand, and we just pull it out at the table, we serve it, and then it's really easy to clean up and put back. makes for really simple meals. Yeah.
And I could do that off the grid as well. It hasn't been or I should say it wasn't a priority for Nick and I the first couple of years to have a good setup for cooling food. We knew we were going to build a cellar and a root cellar eventually. And so we did have some time when we really didn't have a setup for cooling food. But now we have our cellar, and we also have an outdoor cooler setup that's pretty good for keeping things cool. And I also like to pre-chop vegetables, do it all at once, right when I have them, and have that available for the kids. That's a really great strategy, especially if you serve it to them right before dinner when they're hungry. You'll see that jar of carrots will just disappear, or that jar of peppers will just disappear. But and my son, a funny thing about Milo is that he really likes onions. So we can also just set out onions, green onions in particular, but also the white ones, and he'll just chew them down. And I trust his body. I don't know what it is that makes him need onions, but if he wants them, that's real food. It's fine with me. And he's not old enough to worry about what his breath smells like, so he can have as many onions as he wants. So if someone out there wants to get started with an herb garden, they want to have these wonderful smells and wonderful health benefits in their lives, how should they start, do you think?
Probably the most versatile one for cooking and for health and for tea is mint.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It grows really well. I don't know of anyone who's ever killed it. So
some people have tried. Sometimes it'll spread a little further than you want it to, actually. Right.
Yeah.
So should they start that mint from seed, or would you recommend getting a start?
You can start it from seed, but unless you don't know anybody who has mint, then just get a start of it.
Right. And so what would that be? You get a cutting, right?
Yeah.
And then do you put it in water? Is that how you do it?
No, I get the root.
You get the root.
Yeah.
Okay.
So dig up a little piece of root. It doesn't have to have sprawling root, just a hunk of root.
Okay.
Stick it in some dirt, give it some water, and it really is easy to start.
And they should do that in the springtime, right?
Absolutely.
And also, I have had success with the method of taking even some of the top of the plant, the stalk and leaf, and if you set that in water, it'll eventually grow a little root.
There you go.
And then once it has that taproot growing out the bottom in the water, so don't have it completely submerged in the water. So the top of the leaves are still getting sunlight and air, but the bottom is in water, and it'll start to grow a taproot, and then you can plant that.
That's great.
So mint, I hope that everyone will feel confident at least one herb you can completely manage. Any others we should recommend?
Absolutely. Probably number 2, pretty simple, you start it from seed, is basil. Mm-hmm. Basil is really easy to grow. Also, if you're looking for self-sufficiency and you have a fridge, mm-hmm. I grow basil in bulk, and then I don't put it to dry, I use it fresh, and I process it with walnuts or any kind of hard cheese, Parmesan, a little bit of salt,
uh-huh.
and then I add a little bit of olive oil, and I make a fresh pesto out of it.
Pesto, yeah.
And then I stick it in ice cube trays, and I freeze it. And then whenever I have more basil ready, I do the same process, and I freeze a lot of it. And then you can just de-thaw a cube of fresh pesto, and you can make that into a spread on fresh bread. You can add it to sauce for pasta. Mm-hmm. You can put it on any kind of meat that you like to eat. And it probably has a lot more versatile uses.
You could put it on sandwiches, tortillas. You can have it with a cream cheese. It's excellent with your sprouts that we talked about last time.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think pesto is a great thing to have around. So let's make sure we have the technique right. So you're starting basil from seed, and at least in our climate, you're starting it indoors.
Not necessary. No, absolutely
not. You're starting it out in the garden.
Yeah.
All right, tell me how that works.
You plant it very shallowly. You can do it in a pot or in your flower bed when we're talking about using little space to plant.
Right.
You can just plant it in your garden area, wherever, as long as it's very shallowly planted, just barely under the surface. And then lightly water it so that they don't get dispersed where you don't want them. And then they will grow really well. Several years we've had them go to seed and then grow again all over the place. So they grow fairly easily. Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. So I also have started basil indoors. So I'll just tell you my technique too. This is the whole fun of having a conversation. So the way I've done basil is starting it indoors, and I have actually scattered it. We talked in our planting videos about this. The seed never wants to be deeper than its own diameter. It never wants to be deeper than its own width. And basil seeds are tiny. So you almost want to just keep them right on the surface and then just tap them in a little bit, or you can sprinkle a little bit of soil over them. But I start them in a tray, and then I prick out, once they have 2 leaves, I prick them out into individual containers. And I guess I'm doing a whole lot more work with them than Erin is. But I do have a shorter season. So maybe I'll try next year. Maybe I'll try planting them out because they're not frost tolerant. You can't have them out before your last frost date. So I don't know if I would get them fully mature in my shorter season, but I might try it.
You might try it because we have them grow from seed the same year as well. So you can even plant them in different stages. If you are in a really hot climate and your plants tend to bolt, which means they go to seed too fast because it's really hot, you can plant them at different times, say a couple weeks apart, so you get your plants growing. But they start really fast, and they don't take very long here at least to go fully developed, so you can use them.
Yeah, and I know that mint doesn't require, we already talked about mint, and it doesn't require much to survive. Just a fairly good draining soil, occasional water, and it's going to be fine. How do you take care of your basil to keep it happy during the summer?
Basil will bolt really fast. So when it's really hot in the summer, you have to keep it really well watered. So if you're the kind of person who wants to grow mint and just let it be, then you'll probably have to plant basil several times because it will bolt. If you're great at watching after your garden and keeping it well watered, then you won't have to continue to plant your basil. You can just keep cutting and reusing the same basil plant.
Right. So if you were able to grow mint and basil, you'd already have an herb garden. But maybe let's do one more. Can we think of one more that we want to recommend? One more herb to plant?
A favorite. I'm trying to decide if I want to do medicinal or
just whatever comes to mind. Just pick something. We can do more than one too if we want.
Okay. Have you talked about garlic? And it's not an herb.
I haven't talked about garlic. Let's talk about garlic. Okay. I'm so glad you brought up garlic. Garlic is garlic's wonderful. I'll let you talk.
Garlic's for everything, pretty much.
Yes.
It's my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I inherited some garlic teeth from a friend. Actually, they were bulbs, and I got probably 6 bulbs and broke each of those teeth off individually. And that's how you plant garlic. So you plant each tooth individually with the pointy side up, and you dig about 4 inches down, set the bulb into the ground, pointy side up, and then you do that in the spring or fall, depending on when you get it in. The best time is in the fall.
And let's just be clear, the same thing that you eat is also the thing that you plant.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want to plant the ones from the grocery store because they just may not be what you want. You might want to get garlic seed, and that's what you're describing.
Yeah.
But it looks like the same thing that you would eat, and in fact you could eat it if you weren't busy planting it.
Yep. So the ones I inherited were, I guess you could call them seed, but they had come right out of somebody else's garden. And that's what I use from here all the time now, from there on out. So each year I harvest all of those garlic that have grown when the flowers have bloomed, and they get little pearly mini garlic seeds that you can also plant, and they will grow the year after. Does that make sense?
Yes, I've never done garlic from seed though.
Oh,
I've only done it from the cloves.
Okay, so you can plant those too, and they will just grow 1 tooth.
Okay.
And then you can either replant that tooth or use it. So if you plant a garlic seed, it will grow 1 tooth.
Okay, and then you dig it out.
Yeah, and then you dig it out, or you can leave it again. You don't have to re-dig it up, so that's why it grows the next year.
The next year, okay.
It grows into a full bulb of garlic.
The full head with the multiple cloves.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-year process from the seed.
Right.
But a 1-year process from the clove.
Right.
Okay, or the garlic tooth.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I always plant mine in the fall. Again, I have a little bit shorter season, so maybe that's why, or maybe that's just what I was taught, but I plant my garlic in October, and then I harvest it the following August.
Yeah. So each year we plant our garlic in the fall. So you will take whatever garlic you have whole, and you'll separate the teeth, you'll plant those, and then in the springtime, each one of those teeth will become a full bowl of garlic. And then when I use my garlic, I use as much of it as I can fresh. And we use it to cook in almost everything that we cook that's savory. I haven't found a sweet use for garlic yet. Have you?
No, I don't think so. That was a trick question. I use garlic for everything, but not candy.
Not candy.
But we've talked in the cooking month about how fat carries flavor, and many recipes all over the world start with oil and garlic. A little oil in the bottom of the pan, and then a little chopped garlic in that can flavor an entire dish.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about food storage, garlic will store really well. You can, some people braid it to dry it. But one fun thing you can do is just chop it up small and dehydrate it. And it's really, really potent and really strong that way. But it's really easy to do. But usually I have garlic that stays great all the way through the summer. I just break it apart in the fall again and replant some of it. And then grow it again.
Garlic has properties which allow it to be helpful to the body in terms of fighting an infection, fighting bacteria or virus. And so garlic is a very natural, easy, non-chemical way to address a specific health problem, like an upper respiratory infection like the one I have right now, or just to maintain your health overall. And it doesn't have to be fancy, just cook with it. If you're able to attack an actual bug by chopping up some garlic and putting it in a spoonful of honey and taking that as a medicine, I do think that's helpful. And then what I do each year, which all of you have heard about, is my fire cider. I'm half convinced that the reason that I am not as well as I should be right now is because my fire cider supply is out.
Wow, you used that fast.
I did, and that's partly because of my physical personality, the type of body that I have. I just need a lot of heat in the wintertime. And so I love that fire cider, and my kids will drink it too, especially Milo and Sadie. And so between the three of us, I drink it every day. We just put it down in the wintertime.
Wow.
So, and that's for anyone. I can link the video about. I've had a couple videos about that fire cider, but that's an all food medicinal remedy that. I'm using the word medicine only to let you know that I think it's helpful and healthful. All food, edible, drink or salad dressing. I drink it straight, but a lot of people prefer to put it on salad dressing or on a salad so that it's that flavor is dispersed because it's a very strong flavor. But it contains excellent immune supportive foods, including garlic, onion, ginger, horseradish, and hot peppers. So we covered mint and basil and garlic. I think that although we didn't plan this ahead of time, I think we hit upon three absolute must-haves for herb gardening, for having your own herbs in your garden. And I hope that every one of you will feel some confidence in bringing these things into your garden, whether you live in the woods like I do or in the suburbs like Erin does. Either way, I think that these things are within reach. Anything you want to add?
I think that's great. Thank you.
So thanks for hanging out with us, and a big thank you to Erin for sharing her time. And I hope that you're gardening well, and we wish you the best. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. A little garlic.